my name is Jill. My pronouns are they, them, theirs, and Z, here, here's. I'm the president of the board of directors at Outreach LGBTQ Community Center. I've been the president since 2019, and before then I was secretary of the board. And I've been a volunteer with Outreach since 2011, so almost 10 years. I started out as front desk, did some peer counseling, was on the volunteer training team, did events, has been a literal Jill of all trades. And I'm really excited to talk about MATA and the MATA relaunch and what we've got planned for the future of expanding transgender services at Outreach. I'm gonna pass it to Mark.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Mark Hargrove. I am the program director here at Outreach as of April of this year. What brought me to Outreach? Well, firstly, my pronouns are they, them, and he, and his, and I identify as a non-binary queer Black person. One thing that brought me to Outreach was my passion for LGBTQ research and studies. My background is in social work, so I've been all around in student affairs and case management and therapy, and finally back into what I love, which is nonprofit management. So I oversee the advocates here in addition to projects and presentations and group projects that come up. Right now, everything is virtual, so we're working our hardest to make sure that we're still making sure services are available to everyone. And yeah, that's pretty much who I am. Ginger.
Hi everyone, I'm Ginger Victoria Beyer. I am a proud out trans woman and the Transgender Health Advocate here at Outreach, and a longtime member of the Madison Area Transgender Association. So MATA is very important to me, so I am so excited to see some changes to the group and to see that the group has now become part of Outreach and ensuring, I think, the future of the Madison Area Transgender Association for those who will be coming after me as in their transition. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Ginger. We're all very excited about the relaunch, and we want to have Jill talk a little bit about the new organizational structure and what the future of MATA looks like during the pandemic.
Yeah, so I forgot to talk about my identities too. So I identify as trans non-binary, also queer, also working class, disabled, radical anti-racist, intersectional feminist, activist, all of the things that I would hope would be good for leading change within Outreach. A longtime Madisonian too, so I've lived here for 20 years. I was born here but not raised here. I was raised in unfortunate rural Wisconsin, which I think a lot of people in MATA and who are associated with Outreach can relate to, and the struggles of being in the rural community. And so I think that one thing is Madison Area Transgender Association in COVID has, at least in my purview, has grown a little bit, at least on the Facebook page, with the reach and who is interested in finding community. There have been obviously a lot of changes that we've experienced by everything being virtual, being isolated, but there's always, there's always that aspect of isolation within the trans community, because it can be so isolating and alienating to come out, especially in rural communities, but even in cities like Madison, or even bigger cities like Chicago or San Francisco or anywhere. I don't know when the next pandemic will happen, but when there's not formal, because obviously I'm in a leopard print onesie, so how formal am I? But to have some backup, like something like an organizational backup, so that there's support when things get kind of harried or difficult to deal with.
Thank you, Jill.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is the new MATA team, the three of us. And then Ginger is going to talk about a little bit of how MATA came to where it is today and what Ginger's experience has been so far.
Well, I came to MATA, let's see, it was probably in 2013 maybe, but MATA has been around since 1998, I believe. And we have a short video that'll be posted here as well that Wayne has done on the history of MATA, but it has been through many ups and downs over the years. I was fortunate that when I came to MATA, there was a pretty good group of people there. I sat there for probably a year and didn't say a word. I just sat there and crocheted at every meeting for a year, never opened my mouth. And eventually, I met people at MATA. I learned about the process of transitioning. I learned that there were people there that supported me. Members of MATA became my extended or my family of choice, as if you would call it. And like I said earlier, that allowed me to transition in a safe space and be supported during that transition, which has meant an awful lot to me, because if I had not transitioned, I probably would not be with you today. So yes, there are some changes coming. We are tightening up on the rules. We have offered a grievance procedure on both the Facebook and in-person groups and on our Zoom groups. And so I encourage you, as we relaunch MATA and restart our Zoom groups, that you attend and contribute and help support each other, because this is getting to be a really difficult time. We have seen a marked increase of mental health issues in the trans and non-binary communities.
Thank you, Ginger. So there's a few things that we're doing. So I do want to mention, speaking of volunteering and getting more involved with MATA, we would like to ask for facilitators to help run groups. So if you're interested in doing that, please contact any of the three of us. In addition, we are also looking for people who are just wanting to be a part of the leadership team in MATA. So we're looking to revamp the new advisory board to include more inclusion in terms of QTPOC or other forms of people or other forms of identity under the trans umbrella. So if you are interested, you can go on our website and complete a volunteer application, but we strongly encourage you to just reach out to any of us, and we will connect sometime after New Year's and get something set up and get to meeting some of you, because we're very excited to extend our trans community in terms of representation under MATA. Another part of something that I do want to mention, because it is the cold times and because right now is kind of the rough time of the year with the pandemic and people being indoors and being isolated. If you have any hardships or anything that you need, please contact us at 608-255-8582. And we have a financial assistance program, which is called the Wilma's Fund. And this fund gives out grants to people who are in need or who are temporarily looking to prevent from becoming homeless. So if you need help with a utility bill or a car payment or security deposit, or things are tight because of rent right now, or you were just laid off because of COVID or furloughed, what have you, please don't hesitate to reach out to any of us, any of the staff here, and just ask about Wilma's Fund, and we can get you connected with those resources. Thank you all so much for tuning in to our wonderful relaunch. We're very excited about the new website. Brian's going to talk a little bit more about that. Ginger did an amazing interview with Wayne, who's talking a little bit about the history of MATA. And then, yeah, just click on our links and our information that is in the page. And we're very excited to get this up and running for you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ginger Victoria Beyer. I am a proud out transgender woman and the Transgender Health Advocate here at Outreach. And welcome to the relaunch of the Madison Area Transgender Association and the launching of our new gender services website. We're here with Wayne Gathright. Did I get that right?
Yes, you did.
Okay, thank you. And Wayne is going to talk about the history of the Madison Area Transgender Association. Wayne identifies as a heterosexual crossdresser and has been involved with MATA from practically the very beginning. So
Yep.
I will turn it over to Wayne, and thank you for being here this afternoon.
You're welcome, Ginger. So a little bit of the timeline of where MATA started and at least what I've been able to pull together from all of my emails and notes. So MATA, as it stands now, started out as the Madison Transgender Support Group back in 1999, as far as I can tell. Laura Gutkeneck, and I hope I pronounced her name right, began the Madison Transgender Support Group at the Outreach when they were in their Willie Street office, Williamson Street offices back in 1999, as far as I can tell. I first heard about the transgender support group back in November of 1999, which was about 2 weeks after I started coming out as a crossdresser. Then I attended my first support group in, let's see, December 17th of 1999. So sometime it's roughly a few months after the group started meeting. At that time, there was only one meeting a month, and that was, I think, it was on a Friday night toward the latter half of the month. And that's the way it kind of ran for several years. Let's see. The acronym, the name, the Madison Area Transgender Association, was adopted in February of 2003. That was about a year, not quite a year after Laura Gutkeneck has stepped aside as facilitator, and Anne-Marie Knittel took over as the lead facilitator of the group. At that time, we were having 2 meetings a month on the 2nd and 4th Fridays of the month. That ran until, and we stayed that schedule till sometime in 2008, when the number of meetings was increased to 4 a month on the 1st and 3rd Saturdays and the 2nd and 4th Fridays. The crossdresser support group was started sometime in either 2005 or 2006. That's as far back as I can find evidence that there was a crossdresser support group. And that met on the first Wednesday up until February of 2012, when it was moved to the Fridays right before the regular transgender support group met. From August of 2002 until August of 2004, we printed a newsletter, copies of which can be found at the LGBTQ archives on the UW-Madison campus. You can contact the UW archives if you would like to see copies of those. And in 2004, MATA was the recipient of the Outreach Director's Special Recognition Award, the plaque of which I keep with me. Let's see if I can, and there's our little plaque.
Oh,
Since MATA doesn't have any kind of a permanent office, and I'm the sort of the last vestige of the original steering committee, when that was in place at the time that we received the award, I hung on to it. So, I think that pretty much covers the sort of the initial timeline. Over the at least what I've been able to pull up, so that brings us up to about 2012. We've gone through a variety of facilitators over the years. I've been running the cross-dresser support group since inception, and I took over running facilitating the Friday group. Actually, I don't even remember when I started running the Friday group. We've had various facilitators for our Saturday group. And we've been virtual since the start of the COVID lockdowns back in March of 2020.
so I came to MATA, I think somewhere around 2012 or 2013. And I found MATA because I was still married at the time, and my second wife saw a small ad in the back of the Isthmus for, not for MATA, but for the cross-dresser support group.
Okay.
So I came to a cross-dresser support group, met Wayne. There was myself, one other person, and Wayne in that meeting.
Mm-hmm.
But it was wonderful to meet someone who was also a cross-dresser. And at that point in time, that's how I identified, even though my second wife was a little ahead of me in that action. She had been saying for quite some time that I would eventually completely transition, which obviously I did. So she was a little ahead of me with that. But I went to my first meeting of the cross-dresser support group, and then started going to MATA support groups. And Wayne, would you like to share a little bit of what you have gotten out of MATA over the years? I know you've put a lot into it.
Yeah. What I got out of it was the opportunity to interact with people who were feeling the same things I was. As a out cross-dresser, there wasn't much of an opportunity to interact with anyone who was feeling dissatisfied with their place in society, as it were, which is why I started attending the transgender support group all the way back in 1999. I continued attending. I became more involved. Well, I interacted more with the people in the group. I, like most people who first timers who come to group, I kind of sat back and just listened the first couple meetings, and I became more involved, more animated, more participated in group discussions more. I started volunteering at Outreach, which got me involved in various transgender related activities that Outreach was doing. And as the Friday facilitators came and went, it sort of facilitation of the Friday group sort of ended up in my lap, because I was the one that was there the most consistently. So it wasn't something that I that I actively sought out. It just sort of happened because I tended to be the one that was there almost at every meeting. And so that's how I ended up being facilitator. it's been it's very fulfilling, and I've like Ginger, I've seen quite a few people come uh, into the group for the first time being very trepidatious, very anxious. Um, Generally, they are they are people that are just starting to explore their gender identity and are have never um, up till that point interacted with anybody else that feels the same way they do. And I've seen quite a few people who have definitely come into their own after joining the support group. Ginger is a prime example of someone who came in very unsure of herself, and now is heavily involved in a lot of transgender activities at Outreach. So I'm glad that my group was the stepping stone that she needed to come out and flourish as the woman that she is. Um, that's kind of what I've gotten out of the transgender support group and the Madison Area Transgender Association over the years. One thing that it has allowed me to do is feel more comfortable in my own skin. I think having gone to the support group for quite a number of years, allowed me to feel more comfortable and allowed me to feel comfortable enough talking about being a cross-dresser that I was part of the Outreach Speakers Bureau for a number of years, and talking to a group of people and saying in front of a group of strangers, hello, my name is Wayne and I'm a heterosexual crossdresser. Took quite a bit of courage the first few times, and then it became sort of second nature as time went along. So it has definitely made me feel a lot more comfortable with who I am and being able to talk about who I am.
Wayne, thank you so much for doing this. Thank you for the history. Obviously, Meta has been around for a long time, and our recent restructuring and relaunch is designed to ensure that it is around for everyone who identifies under the transgender umbrella for years to come. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Ginger.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mark Hargrove, and I am the Program Director at Outreach, in addition to being a part of the MATA administrative team. So imagine being in the world and you have another identity that you might not be out or you might be out. Fortunate, there's support for some people, but there's not support for all. Being a person of color and being marginalized, in addition to being a part of the LGBTQ plus community, adds an extra level of oppression and intersection that people do not understand and will be further oppressed. So this message just goes to show everyone that there is a need to support QTPOC individuals across all platforms and discourses and systems in this country. Just because you're being who you are doesn't mean you need to be punished for it or be discriminated against or even be challenged and feel like you don't belong. I am here to speak on behalf of myself as a queer trans person of color, but also to speak on behalf of many people who do not have a voice. Please support MATA and please consider joining our initiative as we relaunch this new wonderful platform, which is the Madison Area Transgender Association. We want to make sure we include all persons of color. In addition, include anyone who is feeling oppressed, feeling like they do not belong, and feeling like they need a group to belong to. Being a person of color and being trans or queer and or non-binary and non-gender conforming can be quite the challenge. Every day is a struggle. Imagine living a life where you're full of anxiety, you don't know if you're going to be discriminated against, You don't know if you're going to be pulled over. You don't know if someone is going to try to make you feel less than simply for just walking around and minding your business. This is important for all of us. We hope that this message reaches out to all queer trans people of color, but not only that, we want to make sure that we're showing representation on behalf of Outreach and within our new MATA association. And then Ginger, we also have, who is our Transgender Advocate, in addition to Jill Nagler, who is our president and on the board of Outreach. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to our team. Most importantly, we're here to make sure that you all know that you are heard and you have representation and that you belong to this group. Thank you for tuning into our relaunch. And if you have any questions, please contact us at 608-255-8582.
Hello, everybody. I hope your new year is going well. This is Brian Milana Ponce. I am the Outreach Media and IT Manager. I'm here to showcase the new Transgender Services website. It's to replace our gender wellness website that we had for a few years. There will be updated links, there'll be information about MATA, and we hope that you will enjoy it. So let's start, shall we? So this is one of the rotating images that appears when you first see the website. This is the first page. It gives you an overview of what the website's about, and that the page is from Outreach. It talks about MATA, as well as our transgender health advocate, who is Ginger Beyer. As you work up into the menus, you go to Outreach Trans Services, you go to About and History. It will show the history of Outreach, LGBT Community Center, and our trans-based services. From there, you can find information about our transgender health advocate and how to book her to speak at a local event and the things that she does. Then you go to MATA, and as you know, MATA has now become an official group of Outreach. So there'll be information about the ground rules, the grievance procedures, online defamation, and the current groups that meet, and any information that you may need. Trans 101 talks about the different sections of this website and giving general information to people about what it means to be in the transgender community or the gender non-conforming communities. It'll deal with terms, trans law, trans folks, people of color. It will also deal with famous trans people. There'll be a page for terms and definition. You will scroll down and it will give you a full glossary of different terms. It will talk about transition, social transition, and medical transition. It'll talk about mental health in the transgender community, about laws and discrimination, about the QTPOC, queer and trans people of color, and famous trans people. Now, as it specifies in here, these are not all of the most famous people or people that have actually been a part of the movement for a long period of time, but it does give you people an overview in order to see how visible that the leaders of the community are. There will be safe sex resources, tools to prevent STIs. It goes into PrEP and safe dating and sex. There's also a section for the name change info. And there will be two types of documents that you can download, making your true self legal, full booklet, as well as ID document change forms. There is a link for area resources, including health resources, trans resources, and everyday resources. There's a link that will go directly to the outreach website, and there is a general contact page. There you go. That is the new trans website, the Transgender Services website. You can find it at transgenderservices.org. You can also go to the outreach website, lgbtoutreach.org, and click on Trans Services, and it will take you directly to the site. Thank you for joining me this evening. Be sure to stay tuned for more things happening that are happening with MATA as the other speakers carry on. Thank you, and have a good night.
Hi everyone, my name is Mark Hargrove. I'm the program director here, and I'm with Jill Negler, who is our president of the board. My pronouns are they, them, and he and him, and I identify as a non-binary Black person.
Hey everybody, my pronouns are they, them, theirs, and Z, here, here's. And I identify as a trans, non-binary, genderqueer, queer, Jill of all trades.
Love it.
And we're going to talk a little bit about being non-binary and the importance of non-binary inclusion in transgender services, in transgender awareness, in transgender care, and in the LGBTQ plus community in general. So I have identified as, I've known that I was not just a girl or just a woman for like as long as I've known. Like, I used to get so frustrated when I was little that like I couldn't do boy stuff, and then like that would meld into being so frustrated that like people would treat me sexism sexist ways, but also that like they didn't recognize that like I wasn't just a girl, or like there was this disconnect with my identity. And I saw someone who didn't look androgynous, who said they were non-binary, and I was like, oh wow, what? Oh
yeah.
holy, like, pew, like
Right.
I immediately in that moment felt like seen and validated and like given the language and ability to like not have to align with being cisgender and not having to align with being binary, and like being able to actively push against that binary system and ideology in the United States. And so I've been out for 4 years, I think, only. But I've always known. Yeah, but I've like always known. And I'm pretty fortunate to have a lot of support, especially with outreach. But the biggest thing has been the pronouns. And so yeah, work on those pronouns, even the neo pronouns that you don't understand, because it's so affirming. And ask people what they prefer to be called. Like, if you have friends that you know who are out to you as non-binary, or even trans in general, ask them what pronouns they like to use. I mean, even cis people, like, I'm all being genderqueer, I'm all about that, like, messing with the binary and the cis heteropatriarchy. And so, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Jill, for sharing that. Just to kind of go off what Jill said, obviously trans is an umbrella, and under that umbrella you have gender non-conforming, non-binary, genderqueer, transgender, the list goes on. So don't be afraid to not know all pronouns or not know all identities, because that's research you can do on your own. And it's also, as Jill mentioned, questions that we can do and ask others. For me, I've always known about pronouns, and I've always known about gender identity since maybe mid-college. But I, as same as Jill, I known I was different, but I attributed most of that to my sexuality. Knowing that there's another level of discomfort or another level of am I completely out and identified? And recently, as of like a month and a half ago, I started to realize that I think I'm a little bit in between. Like I feel like I'm a little bit more not with the binary, excuse me, a little bit more gender nonconforming. I like to express myself by wearing mascara and painting my nails. So I always had this expression in me that I wanted to pursue ever since I was younger and in middle school that, you know, changing in a locker room felt awkward or going to the bathroom felt awkward. And I just didn't feel a part. When I was really, really young, I always knew that my gender was somewhat in question because I liked female things and I liked male things. But obviously growing up in a Black household, being too feminine or being less masculine, if you will, was always attributed to a negative thing, or you were, you know, made fun of, or you were not. You were put in a box and be almost forced to have this ideology that fits what the average Black person is or should be. So I decided to knock that wall down for myself and the hell with it. Like for me, I'm who I am. I'm some days I feel feminine, some days I feel masculine. Ultimately, I feel non-binary. So coming into the terms of that, I'm still learning to utilize my pronoun uses and expand it more into they and them and he and him. But I'm very happy that I chose my career path with LGBTQ plus individuals because it's allowed me to kind of go on a self-discovery journey and to share my story with all of you. It's something new for my family, obviously. Let's just cut to the chase. But I think the more comfortable that there is representation out there for people who are QTPOC or just non-binary and non-gender conforming, the better it is. So being my authentic self at Outreach and working with Jill, who is amazing, will kind of help push this for more people to feel comfortable expressing who they are. We wanted to talk a little bit about, speaking of non-binary and genderqueer and all identities trans, we wanted to put a spotlight on trans people of color. And I know Jill wanted to talk a little bit more about that, specifically with trans Black folk.
Yeah. So, a few things. So, trans is something that you can self-identify as or not identify as. And we, as much as different people are impacted differently by how they dress or how they present or how they identify, um, you know, I think it's important also to have a safe place for people to explore. So I know that there are some non-binary people who don't feel comfortable identifying as trans. I know some non-gender conforming or gender non-conforming folks who also don't feel comfortable identifying as trans. And so I like to also think of how within the under the trans umbrella or even outside of that, that we can push against the binary and gender norms because clothes really don't have a gender. They're fabric.
Yeah.
And I would venture to guess that as many cisgender people as trans people wear clothing that is not their gender.
Yeah.
I mean, I even before I identified as non-binary, I wore both women's and men's clothes and unisex. But it's also true that just as with the ACE identified folks being part of the LGBTQ plus family, like cisgender folks who are gender non-conforming are welcome too, because clothing doesn't have a gender. And even if they still identify as cisgender, there's still societal violence against people who do not conform to status quo and gender expressions.
Right.
It hasn't been that long since there were these things called sumptuary laws, where the police could arrest you for dressing in clothing that was not consistent with your gender at identified at
Yeah.
birth. You know, and this disproportionately impacted Black folks who are non-gender conforming or transgender, which most things in the LGBTQ plus community disproportionately impact Black folks differently than any other person in the United States, at least.
Right.
There are, you know, there's systemic racism and historical trauma that we have not dealt with and have not reckoned with. And this year alone, as Mark was already mentioning, there has been a significant uptick in violence against specifically Black trans women, but BIPOC trans folks in general. And so and that has been driven by a lot of political factors, which have also attempted to delegitimize and cause violence against the trans community. So instead of replicating or trying to have a hierarchy within the trans community, I hope that we can all move forward to be more welcoming and be more inclusive and recognize the differences, the wonderful differences, and learn from each other's differences and different experiences, and, you know, bring more people in and understanding, and especially within community. Like, we are our community. It is something that is universal amongst LGBTQ plus people, even if there are some folks within our community who aren't actively supportive of the transgender community specifically. Our history is that we survive because we help each other out, because we look out for each other, because we grow in communities in hardships. And being one of the most significantly difficult years in my recent memory, at least, I'm hopeful that we can come together a little bit more and understand each other a little bit more, and understand that there are people who identify as cisgender and transgender and agender and non-binary and non-gender conforming, and that all of these things are not necessarily indicative of someone's moral character, but an aspect of their identity that should be recognized and celebrated amongst each other who share that identity. I mean, other moral problems notwithstanding. I mean, you know, there's you know, there's no room for bigotry in our community. As Mark's amazing shirt says, you know, we need to respect that Black Lives Matter, because they do. All Black Lives Matter, and specifically trans Black women's lives matter before they're made a statistic.
Yes.
So yeah, you know what, Mark? I see you. I'm gonna use they them pronouns for you, or he him if you want, or mixed. I really like the mix. I like mixing them up. And that I will identify, or I will recognize your identity, and if there's something that I need to learn, or you know, I need to be educated on, I'm open to learning and hearing and growing with you.
Likewise, Jill. Same. I'm willing to learn from you, learn about you, learn who you are. I think that's the most important thing about being genderqueer or non-binary, non-gender non-conforming, is that we're looking to be inclusive. That's our ultimate goal. In fact, the trans movement was started off by, you know, trans women of color. So looking at that perspective as like the main thing to set off what's going on right now in terms of wanting to be more inclusive is a factor. And that's why we wanted to make this segment separate from the introduction, just because we want to make sure that we are reaching across the aisle. And we want people who are non-binary or who don't subscribe to a particular gender to know that they're included in MATA, and that their voice is also something that we look to empower and push more. So I thank you all from the bottom of my heart. In addition to, I know Jill's very appreciative of MATA and everything that's going on. Again, if you have any questions, you can always reach out to us at info@lgbtoutreach.org, or you can send us an email, or you can give us a call at 608-255-8582, and we're more than happy to answer questions and be of support to you.
Yeah, let's explore identity together.
Yes. Thanks for joining in our conversation.